I saw international terrorism as the worst evil I could identify on the planet. And so, having learned about King David as a boy in Sunday school, that really called to me as what a warrior of God can look like at a higher level. And that really called to me, and I wanted to become like King David, fighting for my nation, to go forward and stop evil before it came here and ruined our freedom and liberty and our peace. And so I saw that the terrorists weren't fighting armed combatants. They were murdering women and children, and in a cowardly way.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, that's the worst type of evil. I'm going to go and engage that. I'm going to go eradicate the enemy. So I went to the Marine Corps and then ended up over to the SEAL teams because they had a better budget and political backing and missions. And then ended up all the way to DevGru at the very highest level of counter-terrorist operations, and was a sniper and did all kinds of things. I ended up going to 60 countries around the world, ultimately in defense of my nation.
Right.
And then I got into film and television, doing firearms-related TV shows like Top Shot and Gunny Time with Arlie Ermy, and a lot of these. Had a lot of fun doing that, training people and demonstrating how to utilize the firearms and all that. But it was a friend of mine from the CIA that had grown up just north of Houston in the area that I did that let me know. This has been about 9 years ago now. And he said, Craig, do you realize the area that we grew up here, and I was back there visiting home, has become the hottest epicenter of child sex trafficking in the United States? I'm like, hold on now. Our culture is everything but that.
Right.
You know, we're America, apple pie, protect the children kind of folks. Well, how can that be here? And he introduced me to a couple of agents that had been a part of raids and recoveries. And what they were relaying is this is a different type of crime. This is really, when you peel back all the layers of it, this is a spiritually motivated crime. And for a lot of the people that do this, it's a spiritual act of sacrifice or self-empowerment, and they harm children to benefit themselves in that way. So it's very strange for the average layman to comprehend, and it's very difficult for law enforcement to prosecute because they engage in a lot of witchcraft to spiritually protect, to like a cloak, a veil of secrecy that hides their crimes, their financial crimes, and keeps them from legal prosecution. So they were telling me, Craig, you will never have much effect against this child trafficking crime until you can approach it spiritually and penetrate that veil or that cloaking of secrecy that they hide and operate beneath.
Right.
And growing up under my father, I knew about that level of spirituality and spiritual warfare even. But having been a federal criminal investigator, I realized, okay, well, we've got to go by factual evidence. And how do you demonstrate motive? You can demonstrate actions, and, torture is a crime, murder is a crime, child rape is a crime. So we'll go after it kinetically in the investigations and expose it. But we're going to have to learn and grow spiritually so that we can have a greater impact against it as we go. Because at the time, Doug, I was a Christian.
Yeah.
I was a believer. I loved Jesus Christ, but I was not at the level that my father was, where he knew God in a close, intimate relationship. And I'd watched my dad. I'd seen miracles in our church. I'd watched my dad cast a demon out of a lady, and he wasn't afraid. And we're talking about stuff that you would see in a movie. I mean, this lady was making sounds and movements that don't seem humanly possible, especially out of a small little lady like her. And my dad understood who his authority came from and how it all worked, and he delivered her, and ended up, she gave him a hug and went on home afterward. I thought, wow, so matter of fact, that would have scared the living daylights out of most people.
Yeah.
But my dad wasn't afraid because he was at that level. And I realized, okay, I've gotten my heart broken now on a crime, an industrial scale crime perpetrated against children in my home, not only my home country, but my hometown, at an industrial scale. And how can this be? And I felt very affronted, very personally attacked and invaded there in North Houston, Texas. And I realized I had to fight this, but that I was going to have to grow very quickly spiritually to get to the level where I could have a real meaningful and deep impact on this. So we started filming Contraland, a documentary, and to show people the factual evidence. And it's a good first exposure to child trafficking. For the average layman, they may not have ever known what it is, how it works. Here is the factual evidence, America, of what's happening. You can measure it. You can listen to the victims and the survivors and watch us arrest the guys, hear what they're there to do, and the whole thing, and law enforcement interviews and all of that. It was a good first shot to empower people with the knowledge of child trafficking. And since then, we've been continually exposing it, capturing more interviews and more investigations and more knowledge on how it all works and why these people are so motivated to do this at such a big scale. And here's one more thing. I learned that this crime in the United States is generating more revenue than all pro sports combined. That's industrial scale.
Are you talking about child or
child trafficking?
Child trafficking.
Not human trafficking in total. Just child trafficking is generating more financial revenue in crime than all our pro sports combined. If you've ever been to a Super Bowl or around any of these major pro events, you realize there's a lot of money flowing. So it caused me to ask a question: how many children have to be harmed, and to what degree that it's generating that much money transfer?
Yeah.
Here, what are we supposed to be about in the United States? And so I realized, okay, this is only allowed to run at that scale because of corruption. This is a domestic operation. I recognize that it's a covert operation run domestically at industrial scale. So it's enjoying a lot of top cover, which means judges, DAs, attorneys general, sheriffs, a percentage of whom have to be compromised and allowing this to happen for this crime to thrive at that scale. And I realized, man, we've got a deep, deep cultural problem here in the United States. And I mentioned some of those. Please don't misunderstand me and think I'm saying judges are corrupt. I'm saying some are absolutely corrupt.
Right.
I love sheriffs. We love law enforcement. We work with them all the time. Some are corrupt. Some of every aspect of our society now is corrupt. And so learning about that and how it all works and the motivation has been an epiphany and a paradigm shift one after another for the last few years. So we're growing in our education and understanding of this. So it's an intense journey. But as we learn, we're exposing and recording and bringing empowerment to the people.
Okay, if I can ask you this, because on the same vein, I've gotten to know and communicate with and have dialogue and communications with Michael Yon from the border. Okay. Yeah. I'm watching the dissolution. Well, the fact that we don't have a southern border, but the fact of, you've got fighting men or men of fighting age coming over from really all the countries. Okay. You've got the bulk of the child trafficking coming from the southern border into the United States. What the hell? Why isn't, what do we need to stop this? I look at this and I talked to Michael Yon, who provides all of this information, all of the intelligence to the people that can stop it, but it's not being stopped, and I want to know why.
Yeah, I do too. And ultimately, the answer is you have to have the will to win at the top. And right now, we do not. It's dictated from the very top that we open our borders. And it's even been this administration that welded the gates open on our southern border in Arizona. If that doesn't send the message, I don't know what does. So we can measure what their agenda is. They demonstrate what that is very clearly in their actions. We can speculate on motive all we want to, but we can measure and demonstrate their actions. Right. We can prove that, right?
Right.
So that's fact. I deal with a lot of law enforcement, federally, locally, a lot of ones up and down the border in Arizona and Texas. And Doug, they are demoralized because they signed up and they swore an oath to defend our Constitution and defend our nation against all comers. And they're being made to stand aside, not only to stand aside, but to escort and make comfortable those who are criminally invading now our country, give them packages of support, money, phones, airline tickets, bus tickets to augment, the federally augmented this invasion into all deep corners of our nation. So if people don't realize that the border is a problem in northern states as well, and central states as well, and eastern and western states as well, they're sadly uninformed because these people are being bussed. These criminal invaders now are being bussed and flown into every single state of our union. And it seems to be with the intent of replacing our population because, there's tens of thousands a day, maybe. How many years can that go on before you've got a major shift in culture and what these people are going to vote for? And not to mention you've got a percentage of who are foreign operatives in hostels and terrorist sleeper cells. And we're allowing everything now. And the results will be catastrophic at some point. So it's unsustainable, Doug.
It is. I had no idea how bad this was.
Well, that's by design, Doug. We're all kept in the dark, man. The truth is kept from us because truth is knowledge, and knowledge is power.